And while some are concerned about the surveillance the U.S. is conducting abroad, others here in Washington are focused on the NSA's surveillance of Americans. In fact, Senator Rand Paul is planning to file a class action lawsuit against the NSA. Speaking at the State of the Net conference in Washington, D.C. this week, he says the administration's increased transparency is only the first step toward reform.
Next step is it constitutional to collect with a single warrant to Verizon? Can you collect 100 million people's records? My answer is no, you cannot. It should name the person. The Fourth Amendment says you name the person. So what I think, and I think it's also good for your business model if you're out there, support going the next step, which is really shutting down the collection or fighting in a legal way.
You can take this to the Supreme Court if you can?
Yes.
So to talk about everything from Copenhagen to this forthcoming lawsuit, I'm joined by Wes Benedict, Executive Director of the Libertarian National Committee in D.C., and Matt Binder, a producer at The Majority Report in our New York studio. Thank you, gentlemen, both for joining me. Wes, let's start with you. Let's talk about Senator Rand Paul's lawsuit. We've seen judges rule already on two high-profile federal cases. They came to very different conclusions on the constitutionality of the NSA surveillance programs. Considering this will be a class action lawsuit where a lot of people are expected to get on board, do you think it'll carry more weight in the court?
I think it's too soon to tell that right now. Court decisions are very unpredictable. We've had others on other areas like Obamacare where some thought it would be struck down, others not. It's really hard to say. Once the lawsuit's filed, people will start analyzing it and make predictions on the legal outcomes. But in the meantime, I think it'll have an impact to help bring awareness to the public about these issues. I think America's setting a terrible example for the rest of the world, spying not only on foreigners, but spying on Americans as well. We don't want other countries spying on Americans here in America. We don't think it's right. I don't think it's right for the American government to be spying on others. And the worst part about it is that businesses are being forbidden from telling the truth to the American people and to the world. Some of that's being loosened up now, thanks very much to Edward Snowden's revelations. Right. But Yahoo, Facebook, these companies should be able to tell us we're being spied on if they're being used for that.
Right. And Matt, I'm going to go to you. Senator Paul says he wants this lawsuit to replicate the success of the Internet campaign for SOPA. Online opposition to that piece effectively killed it in Congress in 2012. Senator Paul says he wants millions of people to sign this lawsuit. Do you think he may be able to go beyond just libertarians and actually gain some support from progressives and liberals?
I really do think he can with this. It's something both his father and himself have been very good at doing on these certain issues, these sort of privacy issues. But the thing is with the SOPA issue that makes it different from this is that SOPA was sort of, it was a campaign done by, there was no sort of leader of this campaign, whereas Rand Paul is putting himself first and foremost in this class action lawsuit, getting people to sign up on this thing he's put together. And I'm not really quite sure what his angle is here because he's a congressperson. He can draft some law or go straight for it with a bill of some sort and try to make a change he is in the law itself. But instead he's going this public route, and it makes me question whether this is really about the NSA or if he's looking at 2016.
And Wes, Senator Rand Paul says he wants us to go all the way to the Supreme Court. Do you think there's a chance it could?
Certainly there's a chance, but if lower courts rule a certain way and then it's appealed, it could make it to the Supreme Court. I would like to see it go that high and have the court rule again on these issues, but I think what your other guest said about it turning into a political thing that turns off a large part of the country, he may be a presidential candidate as a Republican, that may lose him some support from the left, but we'll see. I'm glad he's bringing this issue up. I'd like to see someone, a Democrat, pick up on this issue and make a big deal about it as well, so we can get the whole country behind stopping these.
Well, it certainly seems to be a bipartisan issue so far. Matt, given these new revelations about the NSA spying at the UN, climate summit in Copenhagen. What's your sense as to why there's so much interest on the part of the U.S. government to tap the communications of these climate negotiations?
Well, I mean, the U.S. has had a history of spying on all sorts of groups. I mean, we've spied on anarchists, on vegans. I mean, it's just the U.S. uses the excuse that, you know, the other countries do this sort of spying. But do we really want the United States of America to be on this list with the countries that actually do partake in this sort of spying? I don't think so.
Right. And Matt, last year we learned that the NSA spied also on the G8 and the G20 summits. And when asked about this, a National Security Council spokeswoman, Caitlin Hayden, said in an email to the Huffington Post that, quote, the U.S. government has made clear that the United States gathers foreign intelligence of the type gathered by all nations. So because it's foreign, according to them, this is all fair game. What do you make of that argument?
I mean, I think it's just an excuse to try to make people here in America sound like, oh, well, it's just some foreign entity. I'm not being spied on. Americans aren't being spied on, which we know is false. It's basically, I think it's just something that's said to sort of call the response that's going on over here.
Absolutely. Well, I do appreciate both of your guys' insight on this. Matt Binder, producer at The Majority Report, and Wes Benedict, the executive director of the Libertarian National Committee.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.